Welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something a little different. I want you to literally step into the shoes of a cinematic director with me. We aren't just going to sit here and rattle off facts and figures. No, we are going to visually and geographically sweep through what is arguably one of the most dynamic, breathtaking locations on Earth, Sydney's Circular Quay. We're going on a sensory journey, mapping out that incredible interplay of light, water, and human energy that makes this harbor the undisputed beating heart of the city. From its ancient indigenous roots, through layers of colonial cobblestones, straight into the radiant glow of its modern nightlife, let's get into it.
Okay, I want you to picture the ultimate opening shot. Imagine a breathtaking, high-definition drone camera sweeping low over the sapphire waters of Sydney Harbour. We're gliding right past the architectural sails of the Opera House and that colossal steel arch of the Harbour Bridge. We push in close, capturing the sunlight dancing and reflecting off the gentle, lapping waves as they hit the quay. A bright yellow and green ferry steadily approaches the dock. This right here, this is the organic, undeniable maritime pulse of Sydney. It's an energy you can literally feel the second you step foot near the water.
But, before the ferries, before all the steel and concrete, this magnificent cove was a bountiful saltwater environment known to the Eora First Nations people as Warrain. And this wasn't just some scenic backdrop, right? It was absolutely integral to their everyday life. Imagine a landscape of sandstone cliffs, mangrove swamps, and tidal lagoons. The men speared fish from the rocky shorelines, while the women line fished from their nawies, their traditional canoes. The traditional Aboriginal people completely thrived here, deeply connected to this rich, natural sanctuary long before the first sails of European ships ever even appeared on the horizon.
Okay, let's dive into this evolution of the foreshore, because it helps us grasp how the very earth beneath this area shifted over time. We start with Warrain, a landscape of natural mudflats and the vital tank stream, which was actually Sydney's first water supply. Then in 1788, the British First Fleet arrives, establishing a penal settlement at Sydney Cove. But it wasn't until 1841 that the massive transformation really kicked off, reclaiming those mudflats to build a semicircular seawall out of rock quarried from Cockatoo Island. Fast forward to 1960, and this original, rugged cove had completely evolved into a modernized, heavy-duty port, with the opening of the Sydney Cove Passenger Terminal. It's a pretty stunning architectural metamorphosis when you think about it.
Section 1. The Maritime Beating Heart. So, to truly understand Circular Quay, you absolutely have to understand the constant, rhythmic movement of the ferries. You've got the F1 heading to Manly, and actually here's a quick insider tip for you. Sit on the right side of the ferry heading out for the absolute best unobstructed views of the Opera House. You're welcome. Then there's the F2 to Taronga Zoo, a swift 12-minute ride dropping you right at a SkyTram. Short on time, the F4 or F8 microtrip to Kirribilli gives you killer photography angles in just 3 to 5 minutes. And just look at the vessels themselves, the First Fleet class, the Emeralds, the River Cats, each uniquely named to honor Australian history, culture, and some incredible female athletes.
10. This is a powerful number. Right now, there are exactly 10 active ferry routes branching out from Circular Quay. I like to think of it like a vital circulatory system, with the quay pumping lifeblood out across the water to destinations everywhere, from the ocean beaches of Manly in the east, all the way down the river to Parramatta in the west.
So, what does this all mean? The crucial point is that Circular Quay is what we call a multimodal transport interchange. In fact, it is literally the only location in all of Sydney where heavy rail, buses, ferries, massive ocean cruise ships, and light rail completely converge. This isn't just a place to catch a boat, guys. It's this intricate, non-stop dance of commuters transferring to trains, tourists snapping photos, and theater-goers walking to the Opera House. The sheer volume of dynamic human movement here is wild. It makes Circular Quay the 10th busiest train station on the entire network.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the historical weight behind the architecture. Looking at the Overseas Passenger Terminal, originally called the Sydney Cove Passenger Terminal, around its opening in 1960, you see this strict utilitarian steel frame design. But emotionally, this building possesses immense social value. For thousands of post-World War II immigrants arriving in Australia, stepping off the ship into this very terminal was their very first sight of their new country. It was the public gateway to the city, standing exactly where historic 19th century tall ships used to unload their cargo.
Section 2. Culture, Art, and Life. All right, imagine walking the promenade during the spectacular, vivid Sydney Festival. Let me be your virtual tour guide for the 2025 highlights we've got mapped out here. You start at the 1845 Customs House, where the historic facade is completely reimagined in dazzling couture, color, and fashion projections for House of Romance.
Then, walk over to the Museum of Contemporary Art, where Vincent Namajira's King Dingo projects a powerful assertion of First Nations strength. Next, move to the historic Cadman's Cottage, where you can actually speak into a microphone and watch your voice bloom into an animated dream tree right on the brickwork. And then, just look up. The massive Harbour Bridge pylons become a playful, candy-coated fantasy of pastel treats. The whole city literally becomes an interactive canvas. It's incredible.
And you really have to notice the incredible contrast in how the area has evolved. On one hand, you have the historic authority of the 1856 Police and Justice Museum. We're talking heavy blocks of sandstone, spiked gates, dark corridors of cells built to control Sydney's unruly early waterfront. But contrast that dark past with today's modern expression, the kiss of light projection on the Sydney Opera House sails. It's a radiant Technicolor celebration of joy, equality, and creative rebellion. It brilliantly shows how a space once defined by strict penal authority has completely blossomed into a beacon of inclusive modern art.
Moving on to Section 3, Historic Streets and Local Flavors. And this brilliantly illustrates just how undeniable the neighborhood's transformation has been. Looking at a mid-20th century construction shot of Circular Quay West, notice the raw dirt, the parked vintage cars, the heavy construction of the terminal on the right, all while the Harbour Bridge looms majestically in the background. It was a gritty, hard-working scene. But today, this exact footprint has evolved into elegant, modern dining experiences and alfresco cafes. The bones of the city remain the same, for sure, but the flavor has entirely changed. As you walk these streets today, you are constantly stepping over echoes of the past. There's the Customs House from 1845, the historic trade gateway that basically bankrolled the nation's early development through taxes. There are the tank stream fountains, a really beautiful sculptural reminder of the colony's absolute dependence on that first freshwater supply. Look down, and you're walking on the Writer's Walk, brass plaques set right in the pavement honoring figures like Charles Darwin and Mark Twain. And get this, if you grab a drink at the Ship Inn, which was built in 1905, you're standing on 30-meter piles driven into the old mudflats, directly over the rumored remains of a sunken colonial schooner. How cool is that? Now picture a smooth, flowing camera pan capturing the alfresco dining scene along the water. People are gathered, sharing local, fresh seafood and fine wines right beneath the soaring white sails of the Opera House. It's this organic, lively atmosphere where the view itself is the main course. You just sit there watching the ferries glide by as the sky shifts color. It's a purely sensory experience. Just the clinking of glasses, the hum of conversation, and the undeniable magic of sitting directly on one of the world's most spectacular harbors. Section 4. Twilight over Sydney Harbour.
Welcome to Golden Hour. If you position yourself at Dawes Point right beneath the Harbour Bridge, you will witness something truly spectacular. The sun begins to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the pavement. The sky above the harbor is painted in these brilliant, warm shades of gold, orange, and pink. It casts this incredibly warm, softening glow across the water and the sails of the Opera House. It is a moment of pure, postcard-perfect tranquility amidst the usual urban rush.
Let's move forward and see how this builds as dusk fully sets in. The natural light fades and the city's architectural beauty wakes up for the nightlife. The Opera House sails transition from reflecting the sunset to gleaming with their own internal and external illumination. The dark blue of the descending night sky forms the perfect dramatic backdrop for the stark white curves of the building. It becomes this glowing beacon of culture right on the edge of the dark water.
Finally, we reach complete nightfall. We conclude our visual montage looking out over the water. Those ferries, which were bright yellow and green workhorses during the day, are now just glowing streaks of light gliding gracefully across the dark, glassy surface of the harbor. Across the way in Lavender Bay, the twinkling lights of the city and Luna Park cast long, colorful reflections on the calm water. The harbor has totally transformed into something dreamlike, peaceful, and endlessly beautiful.
Well, we've explored the ancient Eora shores, the gritty colonial seawalls, the bustling modern transport hubs, and the radiant artistic celebrations. Circular Quay isn't just a place you pass through. It's a living, breathing sensory experience. So I'll leave you with this thought today. As the harbor lights shimmer and the last ferry departs into the night, what will your Circular Quay story be? Thank you so much for exploring with me, and I hope this explainer leaves you eager to step onto those wharves yourself very soon.